Hi, I'm Leah Louise from Inspired Quilting by Leah Louise. Welcome to my sewing room. I have a great project to share with you today. You may remember last week's quilt, the alternating four patch done in a lot of mixed batiks, and then we had some low volume diagonal patterns throughout. Let me back up and you can see this a little better. Um, I wanted to find an easier way to make this quilt. Putting these together single block at a time was really a challenging task. There were just so many pieces and they were small and they get twisted as I'm sewing the rows together. So I thought, all right, this is a four patch. Let's take it one step further and make it a double four patch, which means we're going to put four blocks together and then piece the entire quilt. And that's how I made this quilt behind me. The big thing with this, the difference is the previous quilt had low volume diagonals, so they sort of receded into the background, whereas this one has a lot of really bold fall colors, which really excited me and where I was headed. But I wanted some stark contrast, and some of those batiks had this bit of teal in there, the fabric that I started with in particular. So I pulled those fat quarters together. I figure there's somewhere in the vicinity of 40-ish different fat quarters in this quilt, though you don't use the entire fat quarter, you just use pieces from it. And I also want to share with you my design page. This is how I usually start a quilt when I make a pattern, and I've gotten to where I create this grid so that I can put in some colors and ideas and make notes along the side. And I include that page with the pattern. But that helps me get a visual of what I want and how it potentially will look. It never is exact, but that's okay. Getting an idea down just helps get the energy flowing and the inspiration working. And I love this quilt. I think it came out gorgeous, and I'm really excited to show you how to make it. So I'm going to begin by showing you how I selected the fabrics. Putting all those batiks together or multiple fabrics of any kind can be a challenge, but there are a few tips that will make it a bit easier. And so I'm going to take you step by step through how I did that. And then we'll do a quick rerun of the pattern and show you how it all finishes off. So I'm so glad you're here. I can't wait for you to see this quilt. And please, I hope you go ahead and make your own copy. I'd love to see your versions as well. Thanks so much. Enjoy. I want to share with you how I put fabrics together. I like to use a lot of different fabrics in one quilt. I have a lot of fat quarters, and I tend to rely on my fat quarters to use them in place of yardage. Now, this is a piece I bought because I really liked the color. Orange isn't something I usually quilt with, but it has teal, and of course that's my go-to. My turquoise, my teals, the seafoam greens, a little chartreuse. So there's really some great color in here that I like. And I thought, all right, let's go for it. So I bought some yardage, and then I got home and I wasn't quite sure what to do with it, and it sat. Well, I found it. I found it again, and I started pulling some fabrics together. Now, the first thing I did was to get the traditional. There's one. It's incredibly similar, darker but similar. This has a lot of similar tones and colors. This goes darker, but it has this sort of dark rusty color in there. Here's more dots. It has a bit of burgundy and green. Now remember, when you get these other colors in here, that's going to help set your direction. Now I also found some lighter pieces that I thought might work. This one is kind of one of those crazy mix of all colors, and we'll just sort of see where that works. A couple pieces of that might be perfect. So I kind of got this started, and I thought, all right, now we need to move on from here. So then I thought, we've got the bits of burgundy. Let's take some of this. And oh, here's a dark one with the burgundy, and it even has a bit of purple in there. So remember, we're creating interest. We want to draw the eye in. This is kind of boring, but it might be good as just a tone piece to put in there. This I like better because it has the multiple colors in it. And then I found a couple more. I love these bubbles. I think, what are they called? The salt bubbles or something. I really like those colors. And again, we're getting a bit of that pinky purple. This is just a mottled single color. It might work somewhere. I can try that. Check this out. I love it. Oh my goodness. I like this because it had the orange, but look, it had that pinky purple in there, and I think that's going to work well. This yellow will definitely stand out. And this is much like the background color. So I don't have a lot of it, but a piece or two could certainly be fun. And then I wanted to go with some contrast. And like I said, I found some greens in here. So I pulled out some batiks in greens, mostly the brighter greens, because these tend to be darker colors. I want the contrast to really stand out in a bright way. These have the bright greens with that sort of burgundy rusty background. I love these ferns, and you know, again, prominently green, but with a lot of the highlight colors I have going. This one might be too dark, but oh my goodness, it's gorgeous. I think there's some pieces I can draw out of here. That's something I have to do more with. Look at these bamboos. I was obviously on a bamboo run for a while there. Here we go with the light background, but we've got the greens, and so we're kind of moving into that burgundy color. So we've got the orange, we went into rust, transitioning to a bit of burgundy. So that kind of sets the tone for the background, that it's not all monochromatic. It's moving between colors, and mixing that'll be awesome. So here was another bamboo, and look at the blue. Oh my goodness. I saw that blue and I thought, that's where I want to head. But I really like the stars and the bright yellow chartreusey greens in there. So that got me excited. Then the next thing that I found were these here. And here's another, here's another of that fern pattern, but it's in a blue and it has the greens, and look at it, it has the rust colors. So that's going to work out perfect. I just thought this was too, oops, that's all kind of wonky there. But this is a great piece. It's got lots of the lighter rust colors, but look at the polka dots. They're yellow, they're sort of a rosy color, there's a bit of orange, and that's going to be a lot of fun to work with. This is kind of fun because we're getting this yellow in here. See that? But it also has the rust and some of the pink, and there's orange. And I wish I had more of this. I love this fabric. And I've got a small piece, but I will make good use of it. And this one I just thought was wonderful. It has some great greens in here. It has some rust colors, some neutrals. So I have a lot of pieces to work from. Now, ironically, at the end, I found this piece. Now, for the most part, I'm not going to use this. The only piece that I would really use is right there. So I only get one square out of this. But if I had to choose a fabric that sort of encompasses the entire color scheme, this is it. It has the rust, it has a little bit of the brown, this sort of yellow-green color, it has the blue. So I had a plan, and I really liked how this was coming together. And the quilt that I'm making is the alternate 4-patch, which means we're going to have large squares next to 4 patches that are made in smaller squares. So there's an opportunity in those 4 patches to do some great contrast, because the pattern is going to create a diagonal across the entire quilt, not unlike a Jacob's ladder or an Irish chain. So I needed something to really step this up and to really be a strong contrast. It doesn't have to be bright because we've got a lot of other colors that are adding brightness. And when I looked at this, I thought, ooh, I'm missing some of those tealy blues. That's what caught my eye. Let me show you how this evolved. I started with that, and I put that in there, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And you know, if I'd had enough fabric, I probably would have done it. But I was about 1/3 of a yard short to make the quilt that I wanted, the size quilt that I wanted, and use this as my diagonal. So I thought, oh my gosh, here we go. I need to find more fabric. Now, because I do have a large selection of fat quarters, and my goal has been to use them, I make myself pull from my pile, because chances are there's going to be something there that works. And then look at what I found. Look at these. Oh my goodness, aren't they great? Now, this is probably not the color quilt you would ordinarily put together, but remember, this is accent. This really is not going to be in the larger pieces. This is only going to be in the string. It's almost like a Jacob's ladder or an Irish chain where you've got those small blocks going diagonal. It creates a great, great pattern. And you get some of these in there with these more tonal pieces that bring out the color. And of course, this bright orange. So this is the quilt. This is what I'm going with. I use a lot of batiks, and this is the method I use to match my fabrics, but this works with any fabric. Start with the one you like. If you find one, you buy some yardage, and then match up. Now, I would never have thought to put these two together, but you know, when you get this whole group going, it works really well. See how this brings in different colors. These are mostly tone on tone, which is what I want because I want those blocks to really be dominant. And I don't want them to blend in the rest of the quilt. This is going to be contrast. It'll work great. And so here we are. I am so excited about these fabrics. I can't wait to show you the quilt. Step 1 of the 4-patch blocks is complete. All the pairs of 5-inch squares are sewn with a 1/4 inch down one side. I did I believe it's 64 of these blocks. Now I'm going to go down the other side, and then we'll press those, we'll cut them, and we'll be ready to make our 4 patches. With all the blocks sewn down both sides, we cut each one in half, parallel to the sewn lines, so that we can open it this way. And we have 2 long rectangles. And we want to press each of these open. And I'm going to you want to press them all in the same direction. I'm going to press mine to the teal side. So put them all in the same direction, because what we're going to do is put these back together, and it's going to nest a lot better if those seams are all going in that same direction. With all our blocks pressed, they're ready to be sewn together. But if we just start taking from the top of each pile, they're going to duplicate. So just flip this one over, and we'll work from the bottom of the pile, and from here we'll work to the top down. And if you come across any that are going to duplicate each other, just set it aside for the next one. So what we're going to do is take one from each pile, put them together, right sides together. We want to flip them so that we get our 4-patch. And the seams should nest because everything is pressed to the same side. And at this point, we're going to sew down both sides, run through all of them on one side, then chain stitch the second side. Yay, our 4 patches are complete. You sewed both sides just like this, and we're going to cut them in half, use the 2.5 inch, and press them open. And now we have all these beautiful 4 patches. They're ready to go. Look at those pretty corners in the middle. Everything matches up. Now, once these are pressed, just go ahead and pile them all on one pile, and get your pile of solids, or I should say your 4.5 inch square prints, and start running them together. So we're going to pick this one, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch seam all the way down. Make sure that this corner is always in the top corner here. We need to be consistent with every pair that we sew in order for these to match up together. Now you notice my 4 patches came out just a little bit larger, and that's okay. I used a scant seam, and I'll just center this in the middle and take care of my my seam allowance as we go. So we want to do everything, all of these together. We're going to pair up in one continuous row. So let's get that done. And this is what it'll look like. So you'll have your 4.5 inch with a 4 patch to the side, just like this. And we're going to have a whole string of them. All of these will be sewn together. And then we'll flip these around so that we have a diagonal blue in each of our blocks. So we will have corner will be our 4.5, and then we have our dominant color going to be on the diagonal. Once this is laid out, we're going to sew them together like this, and there's our block. And here's what the finished block is going to look like. So these will match up like this. They'll also come from the corner, so that's where the diagonal is going to fit in. This is the change that I made from the original pattern. When I was putting it together, there were 15 blocks across and 15 down, and all of them were done in the individual pieces. And I found that to be really cumbersome. The 4-patch, I think, is going to work better because it gives you something to work with, a larger piece that you can put together and not have to worry about the assembly as you're going along, because it's easy to miss a block and confuse the pattern and get it mixed up. When you have all 4 patches, these are ready to go. You're not going to mix up your blocks. You're going to put this together, then this will come next to it and the next one, and it's all going to flow together. And this, I think, is going to work much more easily for everybody. I know it certainly is for me. So the next task is to sew all our pairs together, cut them apart, turn them around so we have a blue diagonal, and sew that center seam. And then we'll talk about putting the final quilt together. We're just about there. And here's the finished quilt. All the blocks are put together. It's raining right now, so I can't get a full shot of it hanging up, but I did want to give you a close-up of how some of these blocks look. I have to move this slowly because the camera has a hard time focusing on all these different fabrics at the same time if I move it too quickly. But I love how it turned out. I really like how these teal diagonals look. You probably saw this in the introduction. It's hanging behind me, and you can get a better feel for how those diagonals work. But there's a lot of different fabrics in here, and I think they all look wonderful. I'm excited to get this finished. I can't wait to have it quilted, and I'll get some pictures and videos out there to show. So I'm going to go ahead and add some notes to the pattern that's out there about putting this together with the 4-patch block, and essentially that makes it a double alternating 4-patch because we have our 4-patch within a 4-patch, and that worked out really well. I like how it went together. It was easier and more manageable. This quilt is a lot of sewing. So don't be intimidated when you get started. Wind up about 5 or 6 bobbins and you should be good to go. But it's worth it. It's beautiful. And I can't believe how different it looks from the other one, which is just last week. I can tell you there won't be a third in 3 weeks. I need a break from this pattern. This baby really put it to me. But I love it. I think it came out wonderful. And I hope you've enjoyed watching this and have an opportunity to make your own.